representative of His Excellency, the President, the Minister of Environment, the UN Resident Coordinator, the Director of Health Services, the Director of Action Aid International, the Gambia, the Director of the National Aid Secretariat, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, members of the security services, members of the press. We gather this morning to commemorate, to celebrate World AIDS Day, a day to remind ourselves of the continued need to fight the prevalence of HIV and AIDS, to raise awareness and to unite as a people to stand against stigma and discrimination leveled on people living with HIV and AIDS. On this day, the theme equality calls on each and every one of us to remember that we are our brother's keepers. We cannot see each other as less beings because of an ailment. We are one people. I pray that this day we will reach out our hands to our brothers and sisters, move away from stigma and discrimination, and see each other as one people. Being infected by HIV and AIDS does not make anyone a lesser being. They are our brothers, they are our sisters. We are one people. We are equal. And as we go throughout this day, I hope and pray that we will keep this. And not only today, but let this be a call for us to be able to reach out and support each other. With these remarks, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to now welcome the Director of the National AIDS Secretariat, Mr. Usman Baji, to give his welcome remarks. Mr. Baji.
Thank you very much, Master of Ceremony, Mr. John Charles Njari, the Honorable Minister of Environment, Climate Change and Natural Resources, ably representing His Excellency, the President of the Republic of the Gambia, Mr. Adam Barrow, the UN Resident Coordinator, ably representing the whole UN family in the Gambia and beyond, the Director of Health Services, ably representing the Ministry of Health as the lead sector in the health response to HIV and AIDS in the Gambia, the Executive Director, Action Aid International, the Gambia, Mr. Omar Ghali. They've been a very key civil society player in the overall response to HIV and AIDS in the Gambia for almost over a decade now. Our colleagues from the National Human Rights Commission, Commissioner Diba, ably representing the Commissioner and Chairperson of the National Human Rights Commission. Other heads of the UN agencies here present, permanent secretaries, senior government officials, representatives from other civil society organizations. Most importantly, the community of people living with HIV and AIDS, colleagues in the response to HIV and AIDS in the Gambia, the country director UNAIDS, representative of the French Embassy, Expertise France, who are a very important partner as far as the response to HIV and AIDS is concerned. The CCM, the LFA, the chairman, IEC, I was saying to my deputy this morning that for some reason the chairman of the IEC has never failed to show up each time we invite him. We are grateful to have you once again in the 2022 commemoration of the World AIDS Day. Members of the media fraternity, all protocols duly and respectfully observed. Good morning to you all. I am very happy to welcome you to the 2022 World AIDS Day commemoration here at the Sadara Kairaba Jawara International Conference Center. As you know, the past years we have not had a gathering of this nature due to the COVID situation in Gambia. World AIDS Day means different things to different people. For some, it is an occasion to remember our partners, friends, and family members we lost to HIV and AIDS. Others will use the day to reflect upon the extraordinary work and commitment that so many people, including scientists, healthcare workers, HIV activists, and individuals living with HIV have brought to the fight against this devastating virus over the last 40 years. For us at the National AIDS Secretariat and partners, World AIDS Day is also an opportunity to thank our stakeholders and partners for their continued collaboration and partnership, for helping us reach and support more people with HIV-related services more than ever the last few years. Again, just yesterday, my deputy was telling me that the interest that the NHRC has in the response to HIV and AIDS in recent years is unprecedented. And I said to him that our mandates cross paths somewhere. If you remove human rights in your response to HIV and AIDS, if we address all the human rights issues relating to HIV and AIDS, I can tell you that we will be almost 75% to meeting our targets. Access to HIV and AIDS services, there is an element of human rights. Living with the people living with HIV and AIDS in our homes, there is an element of human rights. Going to school with children living with HIV and AIDS, or children from backgrounds affected by HIV and AIDS, has a human right element. Working in the same place with people living with HIV and AIDS, there are always human rights issues. So we will continue to partner with the NHRC, the UN family, the civil society organizations, of course under the leadership of the Ministry of Health, because we are certain that it is only through partnership and collaboration that we can continue to make headway in our response to HIV and AIDS in the Gambia. We have enjoyed such partnership from the UN, the civil society organizations, and even the community of people living with HIV and AIDS. And we hope the partnership will be taken to the next level as we progress in our national response to HIV and AIDS. We are happy that the Ministry of Health is about to launch an insurance scheme, and top on the benefit package for that insurance is the issues relating to HIV and AIDS. We are happy to have the Director of Health Services with us here, and they have definitely given due consideration to HIV and AIDS as far as the benefit package for the insurance scheme is concerned. When I do my analysis, my gut feeling tells me that if there is going to be any game changer in our response to HIV and AIDS, the insurance is likely going to be one. For the past 18 years, our biggest partner has been the Global Fund. You will agree with me that the Global Fund is the most successful public-private partnership that continues to demonstrate value for money in the response to HIV and AIDS. And we are grateful for all the investments provided over the past 18 years to help us as a country mitigate the challenges and provide the essential services relating to treatment and prevention of HIV and AIDS in the Gambia. I want to, at this juncture, thank all the partners who in one way or the other contributed towards the success of this World AIDS Day commemoration. The organizing committee chaired by the Health Education and Promotion Directorate of the Ministry of Health, and all the members of the organizing committee have done a tremendous job. And I want to thank you very much for the excellent coordination of what has turned out to be a very successful and highly stimulating World AIDS Day. You have indeed put in a lot of time and energy for everything that falls into place as it is. Please join me to give the committee a round of applause. For the media fraternity, we have collaborated in this crusade from the day HIV and AIDS was made known to the world. We rely on you to spread the word about our work and make sure we reach out to as many people as we possibly can with facts and information about HIV and AIDS. Country, we have made a commitment that by 2030, there will be no new cases of HIV and AIDS, no deaths caused by HIV and AIDS, and also no discrimination against people already living with HIV in the Gambia. Many have already concluded that we are already off track on this commitment, largely due to the inequalities that continue to hold us back in our national response to HIV and AIDS. Therefore, the theme for this year's World AIDS Day strongly calls on government, the civil society, and all partners to equalize in the provision of HIV essential services in line with the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. As we are a very important player in the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. I want to conclude by commending government. For some of us who are key players in the response to HIV and AIDS, we have seen drastic improvement in terms of the legal environment for the response to HIV and AIDS. And we are hopeful that government will continue to provide the needed policy environment to ensure that we provide and reach out to anyone who is in need of HIV services in the Gambia. At this juncture, Master of Ceremony, I want to welcome all and thank you for coming. Thank you.
Very much, my good brother. I am a bit surprised that you've been able to go through your speech, because I was told that the Jonas, if they don't eat, they don't see you very well. But you have beaten the record. So that was quite a warm welcome and a very informative address given by the Director of the National AIDS Secretariat. We will now move on to hear from the Director of Health Services, Dr. Mustafa Bite, representing the health sector, the Ministry of Health, and also I hope to hear more about what the Ministry of Health is doing.
Good morning. We want to first of all recognize thank you, Mr. John Charles, that good job is already doing and also serves as chairman of the board of directors. Thank you. Before we start, we also, of course, want to recognize the representative of the President of the Republic of the Gambia, His Excellency, ably represented by a very dynamic, hardworking President, and now serving as the Minister of Environment, Climate Change, and Natural Resources, Honorable Madam Robert John, representative of the UN bodies, especially our very good friend, the Minister of Health, Ms. Seraphine Wakana. We got to know how supportive and how easily available and responsive she is during our COVID-19 response. So thank you very much. Oh, sorry, I'm not loud enough this way. So we also want to recognize the chairman of the IEC present here. Director of NAS, National Aid Secretariat, the country director, UNAIDS, also is here. The executive director, Action Aid, Mr. Omar Badi. We are working hand in glove with Minister of Health in many areas, and we really thank him for his partnership and his good job. The representative of the National Human Rights Commission here, Madam Diva, all permanent secretaries present, Director of Health Promotion, the Program Manager, National AIDS Control Program, and all the Minister of Health staff present here, members of the LFA, the CCM, all stakeholders, we recognize you, especially those affected or living with HIV. The media, I don't know what the NAS has done. They did very well. I found many of them here. Thank you very much for making this available to the public. Ladies and gentlemen, it is really a great pleasure for us to attend such an important occasion with you all. The event marks the 36th anniversary of commemorating World AIDS Day every 1st December since its inception in 1988. This is not just a routine annual ritual, but it is a day of reflection on the impact our programs have had in relieving the burden of HIV and AIDS among our people. It is also a day that we will commit towards eliminating AIDS by 2030. It is also a day we assess ourselves in the progress made in controlling this epidemic. It also helps us to identify the barriers to our services and help us to profile solutions that we think will help reduce the menace. As a country, we have made appreciable progress in the national response. For instance, we have sustained a low HIV prevalence, which is currently at 1.52%. We have also increased access to HIV and AIDS services throughout the country and introduced right policies, strategies, and standard models of care to help us accelerate implementation towards achieving the 1990 fast track targets and eventually achieve epidemic control. We want to use this opportunity to thank the Global Fund for keeping faith with government and providing funding and technical support to sustain the HIV and AIDS program. I also wish to acknowledge the UN agencies and other development partners such as WAHO, Action Aid International, the Gambia, and other bilateral agencies for their continued support. Despite the progress we have made in the Gambia, the decline in the new HIV infection is not significant enough to bend the epidemic curve. The situation is principally because only 55% of people living with HIV know their HIV status, and 61% are on antiretroviral treatment. The HIV antiretroviral medicines not only prevent disease progression, but they also suppress the viral load to undetectable levels and thereby help us to prevent HIV transmission. So we therefore urge everyone to accept HIV testing, and those who are positive to also accept the antiretroviral therapy so that we can reach our targets of 9 to 9 to 9. The director nurse has already said that we are off track to achieve our target, but the National AIDS Secretariat and the National AIDS and STI Control Program and other implementing partners are determined to change this narrative by ensuring that standard models of care are used across all health facilities and expand prevention, treatment, and care services at unprecedented speed in 2022. It is for this reason that the theme for this occasion, Equalize, which serves as a call to action for all of us to work for the proven practical actions needed to address inequalities and help end AIDS. These consist of ensuring that everyone is well served, increase the availability, quality, and acceptability of services for HIV treatment, and also increase the same services for testing and prevention and combat the stigma and exclusion suffered by persons living with HIV, including marginalized communities. It also includes to reform the laws and also improve the policies and practices. I therefore urge every identifiable group to partner with the Minister of Health to mobilize people to test for HIV and support those who test positive so that they can have access and then adhere to the HIV antiretroviral therapy. We want to make special appeals to the government, to politicians, and to religious bodies who are in a unique position to help support this cause so that we can achieve our target of 9 to 9 to 9. So the Ministry of Health seeks to strengthen its partnership with government, UN agencies, and religious bodies to use their platforms as pulpits to mobilize its members to test for HIV and support those who test positive. So charity begins at home. Every religious leader, every politician to ensure that the people within their jurisdiction, their domain, go for testing, and if you're found positive, you take the drugs so that you reduce the transmission rate. But we use this opportunity, we also want to acknowledge our hard-working healthcare workers and remind them that they are the drivers of our journey towards our target. We wish to remind them that this journey has been too slow and encourage them to shift the gears into acceleration mode in order to take us to our destination and on time. Because by 2030, we don't want to have any new case, and all cases should be on antiretroviral therapy. This is our target. It's a difficult one, but we are very optimistic that if we shift our gears, we will get there. The Ministry of Health has also done a lot of things. Through its National AIDS Control Program and partners such as National AIDS Secretariat, our very close partners such as also the Action Aid International, the Gambia, the UN, and other key holders, we will continue to spearhead the HIV and AIDS national response. Some of the things we've done is to recently establish additional 9 antiretroviral treatment sites and 24 PMTCT centers in addition to the 14 ARC sites and 57 PMTC centers, and 69 HIV counseling and testing sites across the country. It is aimed at increasing access and coverage to HIV services. Ladies and gentlemen, development will in no small measure help to address the challenge or inequality of accessing HIV services by Gambians. This will also help enhance better and wider community coverage to HIV services. In addition, the government recognizes the urgent need to support health systems strengthening efforts in a bid to address the capacity needs of HIV services. In conclusion, as we observe World AIDS Day today, let's remind ourselves of the global inequalities that affect us, no matter who we are or where we come from. I appeal on us all to confront the inequalities that is impeding the fight and equalize efforts to eradicate AIDS. I therefore urge each and every one of us to show solidarity and compassion to those already infected or affected by HIV and end inequalities, end AIDS, and eventually end the pandemic. Thank you all for your time.
To get tested, I was talking to my neighbor and saying, how often can we do it? Because we don't know, we can do it today and sometimes later you get it, and so we need to be more and more advised on how to go forward. So, Honorable Minister of Environment, representing His Excellency the President, Director of Health Services, National AIDS Secretariat, National Human Rights Commission, religious leaders, civil society, UN colleagues, and members of the diplomatic corps, all partners present here, the media, all protocol duly observed. I'm really honored to be here today and to be given the platform to commemorate World AIDS Day with our national partners who have been working tirelessly to respond to the phenomenon of HIV/AIDS. Each year on 1st December, the world unites to commemorate HIV/AIDS as a mark of solidarity with people living with and affected by HIV, but also to remember those who lost their lives to AIDS. Today also provides the opportunity to come together to take stock and to highlight the efforts being made to address of one of the greatest human rights and health challenges facing the world. We have heard from our National AIDS Secretariat, from the Ministry of Health, of some of the statistics on Gambia, but we also know it's not only Gambia, it's worldwide. So numerous studies have highlighted the seriousness and devastating impact HIV/AIDS has on the realization of our fundamental human rights, and our failure to curb the spread of HIV/AIDS is therefore closely linked with the failure within global and national systems to protect fundamental human rights. It is indisputable that some of the key drivers of AIDS are discrimination and marginalization. Discrimination and inequalities that marginalize communities, which including people with disabilities, migrants, prisoners, sex workers, drug users, have strong correlation with the spread of the virus. As we are currently in the 16 days of activism to end sexual and gender-based violence, it is important to also highlight that gender inequalities and violence against women further impeded efforts to effectively manage and curb the spread of HIV. This week, UNAIDS launched a powerful new report called Dangerous Inequalities, which calls the world's attention to a painful reality that we are not on track to end AIDS by 2030. The report further highlights inequality as one of the main challenges in meeting our target. There are countries, there are stories of people whose rights are violated as a result of their HIV status. For example, women and children living in poverty without basic health services or access to medication, treatment, and care. This year's World AIDS Day, the Gambia joins the world in showing that we do care about people living with or affected by HIV/AIDS. And this World Day, we are calling out in one voice to equalize. The Equalize slogan is a call to action, a call to adopt the proven practical actions that will help and end AIDS. More accessibility, affordability, quality and suitability of services for HIV prevention, testing, and treatment. That means more financial resources. I know that this time is really hard to mobilize resources because of the different pandemics and also other issues that we know. But please, let's keep our eye on the AIDS. HIV/AIDS is still there, and HIV/AIDS, we need more resources to support those who are already affected and also to prevent. So better laws, policies, and practices to tackle the stigma and discrimination faced by people living with HIV, especially marginalized population. We must encourage open and inclusive discussions on the difficult issues surrounding the AIDS epidemic, including discrimination based on gender and HIV and AIDS status. We must ensure the respect, protection, and fulfillment of the human rights of people infected with, affected by, or vulnerable to HIV based on the principles of non-discrimination, equality, participation, and accountability. We must address the needs of particularly vulnerable groups, including children, migrants, minorities, and persons with disabilities, as well as of the individuals and communities responding to the epidemic. We must also create social and economic conditions to enable individuals and communities to exercise prevention, treatment, and care options when they are available. The inequalities that perpetuate the AIDS pandemic can and must be overcome. So my message with which I will conclude is we can end AIDS if we equalize. I thank you all.
16 days of activism and fighting against gender-based violence. I call on my fellow men as we talk about equality to remember that we are born of women. A woman gave birth to you. You cannot use your strength, your might, and your hands against women. You cannot violate women. You cannot bully women. And you should not beat women by any means. You know, interestingly, Our faith teaches us that women are made out of the side of man. So the woman is not really meant to be behind the man. I don't know who coined the phrase that behind every successful man there is a woman. It cannot, the women are not supposed to be behind. They are supposed to be by our side. They are supposed to complement our efforts. We are partners, we are together. So no man, I think it's only boys and childish people that beat women. Because a man has dignity and has strength. And strength is saying no even when the woman insults you. Is saying, I will not hit her because I am stronger and she is a weaker being. If you are stronger, you don't use your strength against the weak. You use your strength against also those that are strong like you. So if you're a true man, you will not beat a woman. So any woman here that your man beats, tell them that black man, Mr. Njai said you are not a man. Because men, real men, don't beat women. A word for the wise. Well, it's not my fault. It's the National AIDS Secretariat that asked me to chair.
Change in natural resources, ably representing the President of the Republic of the Gambia, UN Resident Coordinator Mrs. Seraphine Wakana, representatives of other UN agencies, Director of National AIDS Secretariat, the Director of Health Services, my brother Mr. Mustafa Abite, Dr. Mustafa Abite, members of staff of National AIDS Secretariat, Chairman of the Independent Electoral Commission, members of the Diplomatic and Consular Corps, members of the press, most importantly, individuals infected and affected by HIV/AIDS, ladies and gentlemen. As we commemorate World AIDS Day today, we remember and honor the lives lost to this pandemic and show solidarity to all those living with the virus, either infected or affected by the virus and thriving through. We recognize and acknowledge the significant progress that has been registered in the fight against HIV/AIDS at the global and national levels. However, it is pertinent that we reflect on the reality that HIV continues to pose a threat to the attainment of the highest standard of health to millions of people living with the virus and millions more vulnerable to infection. There remain gaps and challenges in fighting the epidemic, especially in the sub-Saharan region, where countries remain to lag as compared to other parts of the world. According to reports, these gaps and challenges that continue to be faced in the region are premised on various social, cultural, and economic issues that continue to hamper prevention, protection, treatment, care, and support services. Socio-cultural issues such as stigma, discrimination, harmful traditional practices, patriarchy, as well as economic constraints, mainly due to lack of resources, have hampered efforts in the fight against HIV/AIDS. Ladies and gentlemen, we've heard concerning statistics globally, but also within our country, where we've seen an 11% prevalence amongst female sex workers and over 30% prevalence among key populations. However, having 1.5% being a significant progress among the general population remains a cause for concern, because a significant percentage of these young people living between 34 to 39 years. This shows that HIV and AIDS is not only a health issue, but it's also a national concern, and specifically, as we reflect on this theme today, a human rights concern. Violations of the human rights of persons affected and infected by HIV/AIDS can be exacerbated not only under these situations, but can also increase the number of infections. Reports from the United Nations, regional and national agencies have raised concerns in the number of new infections and HIV-related deaths in recent years. And these are attributed to salient human rights violations of vulnerable groups, such as women and adolescent girls, children, prisoners, and key populations like female sex workers. This establishes the fact that the human rights are inextricably linked with the spread and impact of HIV on individuals and communities, especially disadvantaged communities. The violation of the fundamental principles of equality and non-discrimination and basic human rights and fundamental freedoms, such as the right to health, freedom of association, access to information, and right to privacy, immensely contribute to the spread and impact of HIV. The violation of these rights place multifaceted barriers in efforts to combat the epidemic, as they do not only limit persons living with HIV/AIDS and key vulnerable populations seek access to treatment services, but they also limit national efforts in ensuring efficient service provision. It is without a doubt that patriarchy remains one of the main challenges that continue to impede progress in enhancing a culture of human rights in the Gambia, as women continue to face systemic gender-related barriers in every facet of our society. When women in the Gambia continue to deal with cultural norms and practices that bar them from making decisions on their reproductive health, or continue to bear the brunt of sexual exploitations meted on them, they, as indicated by global reports, will continue to be amongst those vulnerable to HIV infections. Women, and particularly young adolescent women, are more vulnerable to infection, partly because they lack access to information and education services necessary to ensure sexual and reproductive health and prevention of infection. The gender barriers the women face also deter them from negotiating sexual activity and their reproductive health choices. This further has a ripple effect on mother-to-child transmissions, which primarily puts children, a very key vulnerable group, at a high risk of infection. When persons living with HIV are reluctant to seek protection and treatment services due to the stigma and discrimination they face from society, or in some instances, stigma from service providers, they're being denied the right to help. Additionally, when key populations such as prisoners, injection drug users, and others are denied access to information on HIV prevention and treatment services, they're being denied the right to health as well as the right to information. Stigma and discrimination may obstruct access to treatment and care services, which is a violation of the right to health, and may lead to the violation of other rights, such as the right to employment, housing, freedom of assembly and association. Addressing or countering these barriers is linked to the promotion, protection, and fulfillment of human rights and fundamental freedoms. To address these gaps and challenges that we continue to face nationally and globally, the NHRC is committed to the promotion, protection, and fulfillment of the rights of persons infected and affected by HIV and those vulnerable to infection through educational and training functions, receiving complaints, investigating human rights violations, and making redress where appropriate, conducting public inquiries in systemic violations, and advising the government on legal reforms to ensure compatibility with international standards. The NHRC, in carrying out its broad mandate to protect and promote the rights of all in the Gambia, regularly addresses discrimination as one of the cornerstones of human rights violations in the country. Thus, in addressing the multiple dimensions of the epidemic as a health problem, to this end, the Human Rights Commission, since its establishment, has identified HIV as one of its key focus areas in a bid to engage with state agencies, civil society organizations, the media, and international partners in pioneering a human rights-based approach in the fight against the epidemic in the country, in the region, and globally. The National AIDS Secretariat Strategic Plan, which gives particular focus to human rights and gender issues and supports zero tolerance of stigma and discrimination, is a commendable strategy as it approaches HIV as an health issue and a human rights issue. In this regard, it is pertinent, and I call upon the government that they allocate adequate funds and other resources geared towards the achievement of the goals set in the strategic plan and in accordance with the 2015 HIV/AIDS Prevention and Control Act, as well as international standards. The NHRC stays committed to the fight against HIV/AIDS as a health concern and as a human rights issue in the Gambia and global. Thank you. Celebrations. As is the practice, each year when we celebrate World AIDS Day, UNAIDS puts out a global report and it's launched internationally. Today here in the Gambia, we'll have the honor to launch out this global report. Before doing that, I just want to give you a summary of the report. It's a PowerPoint presentation just to highlight the different components of the report. The report is called Dangerous Inequalities. It's a powerful report. It unpacks the impact on the AIDS response of gender inequalities, of inequalities faced by key population, and of inequalities between children and adults in the response. It sets out how worsening financial constraints are, making it more difficult to address those inequalities. The report focuses on three thematic areas. One is on gender inequalities and HIV/AIDS. It states that gender inequalities are key drivers of the AIDS epidemic. Due to unequal power dynamics between men, women, and harmful gender norms, which increases the HIV vulnerability of women, girls, and young women. The other inequality that the report looks at is inequalities related to discrimination, stigmatization, criminalization of key populations. This inequality is costing lives and preventing the world from achieving agreed AIDS targets, our 1990 and our 95 treatment targets. The other inequalities that this report focuses on is the inequalities related to children. It points out the inequalities that children globally face in terms of receiving prevention, testing, and treatment services. And the last inequalities that we face in this response and that we need to address is the need to mobilize the resources needed to end AIDS. And this requires, of course, political will to invest both internationally and domestically also. We need to mobilize domestic resources, be it for government, from government, but also from the private sector and civil society organizations. Focus area of the report, like I said, is with key population. Here we are talking about female and male sex workers that continue to face inequalities due to the behavior, the practice they're involved in. And it shows that access to combination HIV prevention for this group, prevention and treatment service among key population remains limited across the world. However, it points out to the fact that we can end the epidemic among the key populations if we give them the right prevention, testing, and also treatment services. We also need to look at the societal factors and address this if we want to increase the access to services for the key population. Now, also, I want to look at another area that this report looks at, is ending AIDS in children. The world is failing children. This is the age cohort of 0 to 14 who are living with or exposed to HIV. Progress in reducing the number of new HIV infections among children has stagnated with only very modest gains in the past 5 years. This is a cause for concern. In 2021, for instance, children accounted for 4% of all the people living with HIV, but for 15% of all AIDS-related, but accounted for 15% of all AIDS-related deaths. 4% of HIV/AIDS, but 15% of AIDS-related deaths. In 2021 also, it was only 52% of children that were accessing treatment. Therefore, the treatment gap for children can be closed if we have more pregnant and breastfeeding women and their infants supported to confirm child's HIV status through EID, early infant diagnosis, and also at birth and at the end of breastfeeding. We can be able to have a decline in the infection rates for children. We have also, the report also notes that the recent increase in child treatment has led to increases in viral load suppression among children who are receiving ARVs. So we need to provide more treatment to children at these different stages that we just mentioned. And finally, the other focus of the report is in terms of mobilizing the resources needed to end AIDS. The economic crisis that threatens the world has caused a decline in resources for the HIV/AIDS response. In 2019, only 73 low and middle income countries experienced a decline in their resources for HIV and AIDS. The World Bank also projects that health spending will decline over the next 5 years in 2 out of 3 countries. So this is a cause for concern. Countries must therefore ensure that there is political will to make essential aid intervention. In addition, the donor and development partner base for AIDS must also be expanded and to increase the resources for the HIV sector. Therefore, to conclude on this focus, we must prioritize the funding patterns that contribute to HIV-related inequalities and correct and which must be corrected by international donors who are currently declining their resources for the HIV/AIDS response. And this points out to, like I said, the 4 inequalities that perpetuate in most of the countries, including the Gambia. That is, inequalities experienced due to gender inequalities, inequalities due to key population inequalities, and also inequalities experienced by children in terms of testing, and even inequalities due to resources that country receives for the health sector, but also for HIV and AIDS. I think this report calls our attention to these inequalities and what we need in terms of resources to be able to end HIV and AIDS by 2030. Thank you all.
Commemorating them. The other one is like supporting people living with the HIV/AIDS, and also to try uniting and end the HIV/AIDS. If you look at it, this year's theme is like to equalize. That is rallying cry to make sure that we address issues. When God created, like He selected and He gifted, isn't it? Having the AIDS or having AIDS doesn't mean that we are not going to be doing things equally. You cannot tell by looking. And if you look at us, most of us have other diseases and we're working with it. And people cannot actually, tell by looking as well. So I believe just having HIV/AIDS doesn't mean that you should not be part of the society. You understand? Because that's what many people will say, that they are not supposed to be part of us. But once blood is running through your veins like other people, I guess we're all the same, isn't it? Yes, so we start with the first one, the first song, which is sexual violence. From there, we will also. All right, let's go. Start it, please.
Yeah. Tomorrow we will do our part on stage. We have an hour production that deals with cross-cutting issues, and one, of course, would be the issue of HIV and AIDS. We wouldn't do the play today. We want you to come and support us tomorrow. So all that we will do today is give you a playback, have a taste of what will be happening tomorrow. And we also have an international act, Yoroso, who is from Senegal. He's here with us. We brought him 7 days ahead of the program so we can also rehearse and put him into the culture and, so he can be part of the production on what we really want to present. So please, we go.
Yadoye Day! Yadoye Day! Let's go.
So we also observe the 16 days of activism.
So you call yourself a human, a worthless man who honors not the pride of a woman, fiery of the beauty yet power within her. Who are you? How dare you lay your unidentifiable stinking hands on a woman? You look at her, but not see her. She's not your object, a toy to play with and discard as you please. So today we match in unison. We say it is never her fault. And for every second you inflict violence on a woman, you disregard an entire generation of women. You are so ignorant. You don't even realize it's a felony. And the Sexual Offences Act shows no smiling face. It encompasses all penalties for unwelcoming sexual advances and behavior towards women. We say no to this ridiculous act. It ends now.
Sexual violence, no more, no more, no more, no cry, no more, no more. Sexual violence, no more. Do not harm the girl child, no more. She says no, she means no, no more. Do not let the girl child, no more. Go to one, yo, yastaban, yo, yakajum, yo, Rikomom, the yakano, yo, yakapon, yo. Na defani jamani burga, so what can I tell you, burga, yakan, when yo, yakan, no more from the crowd. Sexual violence, no more, no more. Everybody, let's go. No more, no more. Sexual violence, no more. Do not harm the girl child, no more. She says no, she means no, no more. Do not rape the girl child, no more. Yeah. Ama dungana ko jarinte na sige ana wurde Allah fare da yakaru darade mani sige ama yakare darade khaina na yakare katana yigo alagare barama solle sige de ame makatite na yakaru ngari na soina legere. Let's go sugade yo sugade yo yakanamo anna mago ayo biayo udunu komako ayo adiluela jambo ayo mimi achuko madachako ayo. All right, let's get let's go everybody, huh? Yeah. So many people, so many minds, so many people, darker than strife, so many battles, tougher than life, so many rapes and so many crimes, so many people, so many minds, so many evil, darker than strife, so many battles, tougher than knives. So to the next one is the TRRC. Following the KRC report, the government, produced the victim see at the forefront. Makes all the justice, reconciliation. When there's justice, can they put you go to Wabi? Can they put you go to Wabi? Commit crime to Wabi Yalla. When to Mageti Barba, what goes must come around. TRC back in town. Recommendation is out. White people be this around. Mama numuna ke konanda nandalo yare kamaluwa kenda ke kutua say no to rape police numuna ke do not believe anything otherwise we raise the temper. Mama said sujara women and women can't be victims. One of the big about equal rights and equal justice. The biggest sunya khali politics safety efficiency. Koni maka stop calling people wizard witches. Violence in the nation tajori never again. No more abusing your power. Killing never again, sexual violence, money lulu never again. Then go lock up bang a hole sexuality never again. Training on the human rights, rule of law. That's the way investigating where about of people missing every day. Yo, lady Camilla, let justice guide our action. To them, yo, lady Camilla, let justice guide our action. Yo, lady Camilla, let justice guide our actions. Let justice, take out justice. Justice guide our actions.
Alila may bate. Government, di sa mga nasa, ang Gambia man sa punda kay Tikoyo. Hanaman di wala yan ko niya la tanya sabati ni moye to ni kana luwa mu te bulo kono isa saba luwa ya ni nya woto foda Gambia our home e jadi bese no alkani tora yes on alkani tora ila dimbaya alkani tora ila dole alkani tora alkani tora
Everybody, justice, 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 justice.
We are urging the government to so much to enforce laws in order to protect victims. It's okay. Individuals. Oh, you want kucha for breakfast? DJ, give us kucha for breakfast, please. From there, we give them the gato DJ, if you don't increase the volume, we will not increase the volume of our energy as well. Let's go. That's where you are. Let's go. Let's go. Ajuku janja moran legere wallahi billahi ajukullahi gedo sape horonto lai baramaninga kalero samundumba ila Kenya soro wana giga mogan salaho mo patel suna meloko hello mayigena kata kamera
Lento, lira khibor la sohla profuva, lita kigor la sala de kendi boba, so koi toga tanga elika kata boda, so koi ye kamu file kaparena, sara halala, moda hanyo bright. When you put the eyes, I select. The book of the dice, so bullet. I think the jacket raha is the life. Albulo, habisa piñona, torco, niego, nakuchabula, janikaba, goyego, fana goyego, nakuchabula, niyatunaba,
Kota, Lota,
I don't know where to start.
You don't know where
I have just been scattered in pieces by my brother John Jai. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. I thank God for giving us this opportunity to round the clock to another 1st December 2022. I start by praying that we witness another 2023 December 1st, but with a change in business as usual. Allow me to observe and pay my respect to the high table, the director of NAS, director health, the UN coordinator, my sister, Ms. Wakana, and the Action Aid ED, our able commissioner for the national human rights. I think that is even for us, because whenever you talk about right, gender is in the forefront. And the UN FPA, and also the national aid senior staff. MC, I think you've made my work very easy. Allow me to also respect the presence of our commissioner, the chairperson of the IEC, permanent secretaries, the directors, and of course our family members, brothers and sisters, our loved ones. We are all affected. So that being the case, I'll just call you our colleagues into challenges. The media family. I am happy to represent His Excellency, President of the Republic of the Gambia, who is unavoidably absent for reasons that is beyond his own control. Since 1988, the 4th December has been set aside to commemorate World AIDS Day. Not because from 365 days, we only want to give attention to this important group only one day, not the least. The reason is because of the importance of this team, of this group. It is good that stakeholders come together to reflect on the past and set strategies forward to achieve the unified objective. When wise people defend their case before you come, you barely have nothing to say. I will just add a few points to strengthen what has been said by my colleagues on the high table. COVID-19 has almost overtook our attention, that it has been the most destructive pandemic. But the records have just proven us wrong, that HIV and AIDS is the most destructive pandemic cumulatively. So I would say COVID-19 was another distractor, and we have to refuse to be distracted to protect the lives and livelihoods of this important society. Illness, as said, is not something that needs to be stigmatized. Who among us can justify that you will die without being infected or affected by HIV and AIDS? None of us have any guarantee of that nature. So it should be our business. I am quick to say that less than 5 years, we have been able to throw down the stigma set on COVID-19 almost successfully. What has gone wrong that we are still battling with stigma set on the people living with AIDS and HIV? That answer has already been given by the doctor and the director of Magic. We are failing the way we do things. That being the case, we have to change from business as usual for us to achieve our objective. The team for the and health and AIDS in the Gambia. Government will therefore work closely with the different partners and stakeholders in the following. We're increasing the availability, quality, suitability of services for HIV prevention, treatment, and support to that, so that everyone is well served. That is, we want to make sure that if we equalize the challenge. Reforming laws, policies, and practices to tackle the stigma and exclusion faced by people living with HIV, HRC, and partners to ensure that the implementation of the recommendations are well put and timely. We are cognizant of the fact that resources are insufficient to meet the demand and ensure universal access and capacity needed to respond to HIV in the context of COVID-19 we've just been faced with and we are still battling with. As a government, we recognize that AIDS responses is a long-term investment. Over 30,000 people will need access to prevention programs and HIV treatments for their entire lives. It is an investment that delivers returns through increased productivity, lower health and orphan care costs, dignity and hope, and government under the leadership of His Excellency, the President of the Republic of the Gambia, Adam Barrow will remain committed to funding the HIV response in the Gambia. So we know that funds are below expectations, and the government is committed, politically willing to support this part. By equalize, we will ensure that no individual or community is left behind in the effective response to HIV and AIDS. The Gambia government, cognizant of this fact, has been collaborating with the Global Fund, the UN system, and civil society organizations in ensuring that life-saving HIV-related commodities are freely available to our people living with AIDS and HIV. Such collaboration will be further strengthened and sustained as we continue to combat HIV. As a government, we will continue to show strong leadership and solidarity in the national response to HIV and AIDS. We will step up our engagements with the communities as they are instrumental in ensuring an effective response to HIV and AIDS. And this includes our able civil society. They have a pivotal role in this. To put us accountable, to watch our footsteps, and to support in making sure that we are all on the same page. We have seen numerous examples of how community activists and solidarity have once again been paramount in providing people affected by HIV with information, services, and social protection and hope. For such solidarity to be sustained and meaningful, all hands must be on deck. All of us must support this fight, and we must not accept to lose. We must willingly accept to be winners, and we are going to win. This World AIDS Day is yet another important reminder to all of us that HIV must be at the center of sustainable development efforts. It also reminds us that we cannot end the HIV pandemic without addressing the need of people living with and affected by HIV and the determinants of health and vulnerability. It has been said that the National Health Insurance Scheme, if implemented according to plan, will be one of the best answers to respond to the challenges that we are all yearning for and meeting our targets, supporting the people living with AIDS, HIV, and AIDS. And I'm sure government is more than committed to implement it as soon as possible. The studies have been put forward, and inshallah, results will soon come our way. Chairperson, ladies and gentlemen, the situation of HIV remains a major concern, and there is no time to be complacent. Perhaps, as a government, as stakeholders, we are sure that the best that we can do for ourselves and the generation is to button up our buttons to make sure that we increase whatever we are giving to the attention and the funds to make sure that we achieve the global objectives in fighting the AIDS and HIV pandemic. And we are ready and more than willing to do that. I'll conclude with all the pages that I have. Almost everything has already been said. That being the case, my life has been made easy. I'm just here to strengthen the demands that have been made. The theme for this year, World AIDS Day, is equalized. We all know the importance of that. And as said, without equality, no results for all of us. Mr. Chair, I think when I have anything to anybody to assign or to appoint to be the advocate of women, you will be top on my list. But I want to say that he was not bribing anyone. It is very true that we have tried men for so long. So why not also give us a try? And I think much has been said on that, and people have listened, and I'm sure action will soon follow. It's good that on the high table experience, Mr. Chair, we have a balance. I cannot count in front of me, but as far as the high table is concerned, we already have a balance. So National AIDS Secretariat, they are working with us. Before I conclude, I wish to remind everyone, prevention, treatment, care, and support services are available in each region of the country. I urge you all to make the best use of these services as part of our shared responsibility in combating AIDS in the Gambia. I want to conclude by saying that, Mr. Chair, you're very right. Any day that we are able to have a market price for life, we will be able to pay the services of our health personnel. I don't think we'll one day have a market price for life. They budget on you, but even the challenge that confronts you when you are executing your duties, we are proud of you. And you have the government support all the way around. Thank you so much, National Youth Secretariat. Thank you everybody for coming. I wish you all the best of luck. We will celebrate many more of this one.
Versatile and indeed always on top of the subject matters. Thank you so much. And to all the women in the country working, doing hard work, to all the women advocates, God bless you. Let me encourage you and challenge you not to give up. The fight may not be easy, but you have more people on your side than people against you. So keep doing the work, keep advocating, and we will always be there to support you. We have come to the end of the program. The plane is just now landing, and we are going from here. We will allow the high table to move out. I think they could use that route, and then we will go out to the front, the entrance, to do a photo shoot. So I will appeal to you, all of you, immediately the high table moves, let's go out and do the photo shoot. And after, for the jewelers and the fullers that their tummies are rumbling now, lunch will be served. So let's excuse the high table. And thank you to the 8th Secretariat for putting this together. God bless you.